Well, hello there and good day. Thank you for joining me. I am Frost PDP, and today we're going to talk about Crusader Kings 2, in particular the Holy Fury expansion pack that is coming out soon. It's August 12th. I know they're still releasing information, but I want to look at dev diary notes here because I'm interested in the game design process. It's just something that I'm looking at in my life. Now, forewarning, this is going to be a bit of a long video, so if you want my overall impression on what I've seen so far, I love it. It's getting like a 9 out of 10, and like it could be like a 9.8 out of 10 if it's all implemented correctly. There's some things that I don't know how they're going to do, but it looks great. So with that in mind, let's start by I want to harken back to about 12 months ago, 14 months ago actually. I was on the Crusader Kings 2 subreddit, which I love hanging out on, and I can occasionally visit the Discord as well. If you haven't already, please check that out on your own time. I'll try to include a link in the description. But yeah, so about 14 months ago, June 24th, 2017, last summer, I started this little thing called the People's Crusade, where I sourced together a bunch of different suggestions that people wanted to see happen. New Crusade and Jihad Holy War mechanics, all new timeline options, prelude to the First Crusade, things like that. I'm going to include a link to this if you want to see what I did there. With that in mind, yeah, so I'm really psyched to see that Paradox is doing this. I mean, if they're listening to the community, that's great. I remember some brouhaha about how Paradox does DLC and how they were, supposedly squeezing money out of games, and I understand why they would do that, because they need to fund development, and if people are buying expansion packs, then they're liking what's being made. My only concern with that has always been trying to get people into this game like I'm trying to get Veracity Trigger, and we've been doing a multiplayer. It's really hard, and it's great that you're allowed to, by the way, if you didn't know this is good to know. If you host a multiplayer game and you have all of the expansion packs, or some of them, people who connect to you, even if they don't have those packs, can still play off that. So if you have friends you want to introduce them to CK2, you're big into CK2, and you just say, I want my friends to play Crusader Kings. When there's a Steam sale, have them pick up, or another sale elsewhere, have them pick up a copy of the base game and play multiplayer with them. Because then they can play with all this stuff, and if they like it, they can buy in, and if they don't, they can play with you and still do things with you. So, that's just something to keep in mind. What this is doing as an expansion pack is it really is filling in all the blanks. There's a lot of depth being added to multiple game aspects, from things that were present in the original release, like the Crusades the game is named after. There's improvements to paganism, which, some might say this should have been thought of before, and maybe it even was, but they couldn't add it, or maybe it wasn't, and now they are. The point is, you are getting additional stuff to this game that is going to be very rewarding. So with that in mind, we're going to go through these topics. Some of them I haven't even looked at, or at least looked at in a long time, because I want to be able to look at this and say to myself, wow, I'm really inspired by what they're doing here. Dev Diary 78, we're going to start with that one. It is listed as Dev Diary number 1 for Holy Fury, and it's called Polishing Up the Map, or really polishing up the map, because it's kind of a pun. And they're giving you a hint. This is dated January 29th, so that's when they really announced the expansion pack. We're working for quite some time. It's too early to go into detail, but we have a lot of interesting stuff going on. Without spoiling the theme of the upcoming expansion, I want to give you something to look at and discuss. And they basically say, in addition to theme-specific features we're making, we're also working our way through some of the more neglected areas of the map. Sorry, I can't be a little straight with the mouse highlight. Correcting mistakes and increasing the granularity of the playing field. I don't even know what granularity means. I guess that means there's going to be more provinces to go through, more small-scale stuff. I always felt like once you get east of Lithuania, it's all just a giant plain. And maybe they're fixing that. They sort of explain it down here. It's listed as code, but it's not. They updated the map to Poland. They added the river to make it more geographically accurate, which is always nice. They added 2 rivers, so that adds river crossings. So that's just something to be aware of. It's not as big as mountains on our maps, but it's still a thing. they're going to release a bug fixing patch. They already did. And since they're early in the development cycle, dev gyros will be irregular. Okay. So as of January 29th, we knew there was a thing coming out. By the way, this is playing ads. Cool. I want to show you one thing that good old Emir Aziak, good friend of mine, big guy to know. He knows a lot about CK2. It says this thing here, show only dev responses. You click this and it filters any posts on the Paradox forums to just developer only. So this is a way to sort of see how the developers are responding to questions. They tend to do things like highlight the question that was asked, etc. So yeah, point is, this is just a way to get more information. If you're interested, just go to the Paradox Interactive forums and filter. So that was 28. I'm using this. That's the thing. Just music. Anyway, so that was number 1. Number 2, beautifying the Baltics. So this is going to be number 79, right? I know the numbers get a little weird between the number that it's posted here and the number that it officially is. That's a thing. Now, this is what I love, when Paradox gives you a good side-by-side, so you can see differences. Work's progressing. We're cheesing right through the neglected areas. This is for the Baltics, so that's like Lithuania, Livonia, Western Russia. And this is an area that, again, kind of feels like a giant plane throughout most of the game, because it's at least early game with the 769 and 876, is it, starts? It's just very, it almost feels like just an area to conquer. Now it's going to be a little bigger. You have new on the left, old on the right. And if you look on the right where it's like, oh, we have 2 provinces on the coast here. Now there's 1, 2, 3. Plus some stuff is expanded. They've made new duchies. New duchies are a thing. When we pick up Holy Fury, things are going to look different for many reasons. They're going to feel different for many reasons, such as such. So, okay, now we know that the Baltics are getting some love. That continues with patch number 3, or I guess it's 80. And again, now this time old is on the left. I guess there was an inconsistency. Bad Paradox. Moving on. No, I kid. I kid Paradox. This is great work. So they are revamping a lot of stuff in the map. Like I said, they just make Finland a little, I guess, more granular. They added more provinces, made things a little neater. So this area always felt like it took forever to move through, and you just got attrition to death. With more provinces, that adds just a little more, like, shorter distances between provinces, means there's a little faster action, so you're not just constantly chasing things around. Cleaning up the map. New game rule about the succession of exclaves. 81. Alright, so exclaves are a thing I have literally talked up to death because it's kind of how I play the game. Remember when I made a video, CK2 tips and tricks, about summoning armies and how you can take an entire duchy and give one county of each part of the duchy to a different king vassal so that you can summon all of their armies within one spot? I think what they are doing is they're nerfing that. That's what I think this is, because I know that practice is frowned on since it doesn't represent de jure kingdoms anymore. Yeah, this is going to make for interesting stuff. So basically the concept of Exclave Independence, as they're calling it, is that Scotland is really the worst case scenario. It's a landlocked, so no sea access, landlocked single county that is just chilling out in the Byzantine Empire, millions of miles away from where it belongs. And the idea is that eventually that land will just flip independent when the ruler dies, or something will happen. There'll be a revolt, which I know is in the game somewhere, but I rarely see it, at least as long as you're not the top liege, the overlord, I guess. I don't know. So, yeah, basically the idea is that the game will automatically clean up exclaves. You can see it here, Bengal, Bengal, Bengal. I'm using my mouse pointer a lot, by the way. I use it like a what are they called? The yardsticks that they put in a classroom. This is my yardstick. All right, so cleaning up. All right. It might nerf my gameplay style significantly. It will certainly nerf blobbing if that's the case, but that's not a bad thing. Making this game more about the Jur Kingdoms is good. The only thing I would suggest would be that if there is a whole duchy, if you own the duchy or your vassal owns the duchy, you would be able to retain it. It reminds me sort of how the King of England was still sort of a vassal of France due to owning Normandy, that kind of thing. Also Aquitaine at one point, I believe. That would just be interesting to see. There are other historical exclaves as well, and there are some nation states that don't rely on traditional definitions of like borders, like the Vatican, which, you know, kind of had at one point the Papal States, and the Papal States could be wherever the Pope had enough influence to maintain them, that kind of thing. Alright, anyway, I'm going on. Finally, God wills it, Deus Vult. A rework of the Crusade mechanic. They had this prepared by May 14th, and this is the real crux of Holy Fury. They are making the Crusades extremely different. I don't know where to begin, because without the ability to play through this and see it for myself, it's really hard for me to just say, well, based on this picture and these words, this is what's going to happen. Like, no. I like to be able to hover over. I know I sound exasperated. I'm just really excited. This is awesome, and I want to get through this information. So, Holy Shield on the wall, which is the holiest city of them all. They have added mechanics by which you can basically throw resources into a war chest that will boost the strength of the people in the crusade, and then you can help decide who the beneficiary is going to be of the crusade, right? So when the Pope decides to turn for a new crusade, you'll have access to a plethora of useful information. We're going with the highlight, and you'll be able to take actions to help the crusade or alter its course. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. Sorry about that, folks. I'm going to try not to have that happen again. In the Crusade view, there's information. It's useful, and you'll be able to take actions to help the crusade or alter its course. You'll be able to see the Pope's proposed recipient, if any, in the top left corner. There's a timer, and during this timer, I guess, where's the timer? Here's the timer. You can do things. You can pledge your military support, which lets you be a pledged participant. That helps build up the strength. And the religion being targeted can counter-pledge. Okay, good. All Catholic rulers get the option of donating money to the war chest in exchange for piety and Pope opinion. That's good. Crusaders who pledge military support can add a beneficiary. Must be a dynasty member, and depending on your participation, they may be granted a title in the Crusader Kingdom. That sounds familiar. Should the crusade be successful? More on this later. Players can pay piety to change the target, character, and or title. I remember seeing this. And this is when people lost their minds about this patch, because everyone immediately thought 4th Crusade. Everyone thought 4th Crusade. Why wouldn't you? It's one of the most historically important events of the crusading era. It set up the guaranteed demise of the Byzantine Empire and the fall of Constantinople. Yeah, it's kind of important. And players can have a stance. Okay. So there's a war chest, and when preparation phase is over, 20% of the money is divided between the pledged crusaders. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Then there's other ways it's spent. You get payoff. It's almost like a 50-50 raffle. Countdown timer is replaced by the war score, and the name of the crusade is updated. There are, you know, the crusade is successful. What will happen depends on the top contributor's score, or stance rather. There are 3 stances: selfish, for my beneficiary, and comply with papal demands. Okay, so there's different ways you can spend your, victory. Now there's going to be something different. It's not going to be just the winner gets to land. Player can still use the old system by using Selfish. I like that they're allowing you to still use the old system. If you like it, you can still use it. That's a great way to have the game, because that way the AI will pick other things and you'll have more of a conflict on your hands. Okay, so if your beneficiary is selected to be the king or queen of the kingdom, you have the option of switching characters, almost like a tag switch, to take control of the newly established Crusader Kingdom and leave your old character behind, which is part of the reason why you can only choose members of your dynasty's beneficiaries. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm assuming that being successful would also be an achievement of some kind. There are, yeah, and here's where they really tease the Dandolo incident. Here you go. A few special crusades. So we're going back to Dev Diary 6 on our list, or what is this written? It's 84. That's really interesting. Russia was 6 on my list. So instead of 80, I'm sorry, this is a little distraction, but I just wanted to see something. So that's 83. So you're 80. What, 1? So they skipped 1. Okay. Renovating Russia. Basically just more map changes. Wallachia is a little different. De jure lands are a little different. Kingdoms and even empires are going to be different. Okay, major overhaul of the whole Russian sphere. There's a new Empire of Russia. You get 5 kingdoms, 3 new kingdoms. Old Rus is now Novgorod. That's not good for EU4 players, I guess, because Novgorod never lives long. No, I'm kidding. I don't really know much about EU4. I've seen that happen a lot, though. Yeah. So, new Russian stuff, 37 new provinces total. That makes this area a lot more interesting and, you know, gives you more to conquer if you're going through it all. Legacy of Legends. This is another one that they really released a lot of important stuff for. This is Bloodlines. This is a totally new feature. It doesn't relate to any of the old ones, which is okay, worth noting. There's a feature specifically tailored towards the ones among you who truly enjoy breeding potent dynasties, which are legendary bloodlines. And as you can see in the left, there's going to be a whole new redesign of the character page, which is probably the very first comment. Yep, Kaiser Harm, you are efficient. So the point of this is, right, I'm going to leave you to basically look at a picture for a little while. Certain rulers who are particularly powerful and do particularly awesome things they can basically get hereditary things that they pass down. It reminds me of when they added books to the game, like the Magnum Opus and the regular book. They're just additional things that a powerful bloodline can pass down to stay more powerful. So I guess it tilts the axis of stability a bit. It's not genetic. It's power gained from perception and belief. Some of these things look insane, like personal combat skill plus 5. That's a lot, but I think they're changing combat skill, so that's a thing. And you can look at this on your own. Again, it's not hard to find this link. It's forum.paradoxplaza.com, but I'll try to include a link to it. Not each individual one, but to CK2 Dev Diaries in general. Yeah, basically, bloodlines are powerful. You can get them. They're just modifiers that make you stronger. Oftentimes with either religions, cultures, or just like something like 5% morale defense, which is actually really nice. Does the character view Redux? Okay. Remember how in the tutorial series I was making, still releasing stuff for, I did for the very first episode a Holy Fury one of these. Well, now we're looking at what it's going to be like after Holy Fury. It's being called Redux. It looks like it incorporates some visual aspects from mods I've seen, but that's okay. Some elements have been removed or simplified. Combat modifier has been replaced with a new orange icon in order to make it more clearly you can hover over. I think that's this. Maybe. They've exposed personal combat skill value. Basically, if you're more sure of how well you fight, I'm assuming that's what the sword and shield is. Some buttons are censored, by the way. They use pictures of confusing ducks. But I don't see any pictures of confusing ducks. Oh, I guess these are the confusing ducks. Okay. Yeah, basically they've just made the character sheet a little more efficient, which is always a nice thing. I know also they added some visual effects, so that's a bonus. Killing Spree 87, or Dev Diary number 9. Basically, it's a minor feature. It's just a button that lets you keep track of who you've killed, how many people you've killed. Maybe there'll be an achievement tied to being a mass murderer. And characters with the reformed pagan religion using the bloodthirsty gods doctrine tend to top the lists. More on that in the next Dev Diary. So they teased what's coming next. Very well done, by the way. Reformed pagan, bloodthirsty gods, basically like murder god. Okay, faceless. I love how someone's like kind of boring, but yeah, like you've already gotten a couple of huge things, guys. Like, all due respect, just the overhauling of the Crusades and the map would have been a patch 2 patches ago. Not that this is enough for me, but it's a start, right? Like, it's clear there's something going on here. And Bloodlines, I mean, that's a lot of stuff. Faith in My Own Image, which again was teased, so I mean, patience, grasshoppers. I love you all, but patience. This is huge. I guess supposedly there's Midsummer Celebration in Sweden. I know it's very dark there most of the year, so they like to celebrate in the Nordic states, which is awesome. How do you do that? It's like summer break, but like for adults. So with Holy Fury, reforming a pagan faith is no longer a one-time click type of deal. Instead, you'll be able to tailor the new religion to become exactly what you want it to be through the new Reformation interface. Basically, this is custom religions, which is fantastic because Reformed religions are already a historical fantasy in a sense, because if they had happened, history would have gone differently. Or if they happened, we don't hear about it because of how history went. So for this to be mechanic, instead of just, oh, you did something cool and reformed it and got a few new things, now you get to customize it to your own liking. This really rewards the player's efforts. Like, hey, you did this really kind of difficult at times thing. Congratulations, make your own religion, and no 2 playthroughs would be the same. You have a lot of replay value here. There's a lot to explore just with this one mechanic. It's really awesome. Some features might be that you have the ability to do Great Holy Wars, which are still different from Crusades, because Crusades are now something much bigger. There's one with low base morality or moral authority. There's some that if you're waging war against members of your own faith, you lose piety. They restrict marriages or don't restrict marriages, and the devs actually went through and demonstrated a bunch of possible combinations, which is really fascinating. I don't have a list in front of me to look at, but all of a sudden, the top comment is, this is awesome. So, like I said, patience, grasshoppers. Mass conversion, or how I learned to stop my pagan ways and love God. This is another thing that if this was all Holy Fury was, just reforms to Catholicism, we'd still love it. Numero 11, I believe. Basically, mass conversion. I've never been really big on trying to convert my neighbors because I tend to just eat them. But if for some reason you want to roleplay, maybe I would ever do a role-playing storyline where I strictly roleplayed. Yeah, you can do major reform things. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, I guess, is the thing. And maybe it could lead to different crusades, like the Northern Crusades, which is kind of what it was. I love the top comment. Benjaseth, Odin is not pleased. Very good. So the point is, it's a chance for, and this is going to be great for the AI to do, because with the AI doing it, It doesn't matter what I'm doing out in, say, I don't know, Ireland, if the Holy Roman Empire's rulers are trying to convert things. It just makes it more likely that we're going to get a more historically accurate scenario, which I'm okay with, because it makes the early game conform more towards real life. Splendid Scandinavia. Alright, so this is Dev Diary 90, I believe. So 1, the Vikings have pillaged a cartographer and found some more defined maps of their own homes, of all things. That's just hilarious. They're doubling the number of counties in Iceland. That alone is interesting. They're definitely expanding Sweden. You can see, by the way, just for your own reference, I've been listening to some Carolus Rex by Follow the Cipher, and it's a fantastic song by a great band. It's originally a Sabaton song. Sabaton has worked with Paradox. It's actually relevant. Yes, I like this person's this person's opinion. He's wiki royalty. Cool. It's great that landless dynasties can now have more impact on Scandinavia. So good. Very cool. I like that. It's more options for history to do stuff. Altering the Alps and idealizing Italy. Numero 13, I believe, or 91. They're redoing Italy. They're reforming the Alps a little bit, adding some passes and whatnot. That's pretty cool. Burgundy has more duchies. On the other side of the Alps, they've cut up larger provinces. I like that. More granular, as they say. There's a lot of pictures. I invite you to look at them on your own time. But now there's actually like a third kingdom in Italy. I don't know if I like that, but it does make Italia a little bigger. Plus, if you've got an interest in the Habsburg jaw and the Archduchy of Austria, you can create the Archduchy of Austria, which I guess is a king-tier title. So there's now a Kingdom of Austria. Cool. Yep. Nucleon, seizing on the moment, making a valid point. It looks awesome in practice. Alright, these are some I haven't really looked at. Orders of magnitude. Number 14. I have no notes on them. Hello there. Halfway through July. We're in August, by the way. Going to start with clarifying. Holy Orders are not going to be made playable. Alright, this is a change. Can't say I'm a fan of, because it's not a change, because I would have liked to see an implemented Holy Order / Theocracy thing. I know the game is supposed to be dynastic, but it's become more about alternate histories, so I don't see why we couldn't do this. But certain things might change. This is free patch. You will not have to pay for this stuff, so that's cool. Holy Orders can do stuff, basically. They have their own frames aside from the feudal blue. So I guess that's the gray. A new limitation we've added is that you can only vassalize one holy order at a time. Just to make sure we didn't have one player changing religions and trying to capture all of them, not Pokemon. Good. Vassalize the holy order and they don't find you fit to rule. They will leave your service. They will return any land that you hold, that you are the de jure lord of. So with that in mind, you shouldn't usually lose large swaths of land. This prevents the independence issues that I had in my Jade Biz campaign when you have to map up all of Europe. Some more interesting Holy Orders, and yeah, hopefully the Holy Orders will be a tad more interesting. Next week we will take a look at ... Let me take a look at my notes here. ... Shepherds, zealous kids, and Venetians burning down Byzantium. So that's literally the People's Crusade. It's just being called the Shepherd's Crusade, I think. I'm 90% sure. I could be wrong. Technically, I have a bachelor's in history, although this isn't my particular era, or it wasn't when I studied it. My school didn't even offer that much, to be honest. I did get Latin American education, though. So, basically, Venetian guile. Dandolo, the Fourth Crusade. The mere fact that this is a thing you can do is awesome. And good leaving off there, Snow Crystal. The Shepherd's Crusade. Crusade of poor souls from Dijon. Men and women from all across the French lands have gathered to witness this moment, with not a single lord or lady to lead them, not to be seen among the populace. There's a man who... Yeah, that's basically Peter the Hermit. So cool. Okay. Does it say how the mechanic works? There were apparently old events in there for it, but it didn't work. That's cool. It has a chance to start a couple years after failed normal crusade. Started before, kind of, but whatever. Unless we're talking about different things. I could be wrong. Start somewhere in Catholic Europe and target a kingdom in the Iberian Peninsula or Jerusalem. Yep. Conflict with the local lords. I love that. Who knows when Sublumin they might win. The Children's Crusade. That was a horrible, horrible, horrible thing in real life. Where basically just a bunch of kids were made into slaves. So anyway, if a Jerusalem is held by infidels, a landless child in Europe might decide to pick up arms and start his own little crusade, gathering fellow Catholics and traveling all the way to the Holy Land. Social Crusade will move from court to court, demanding troops and resources from local rulers. It's basically like a Shepherd's Crusade. You can become their sponsor. You can mess around with them. These are so many different levers of gameplay that it's just awesome. So if it wins, great, but it's probably not going to win is what you're telling me. Then there's the Crusade for Orthodox Thrace. In other words, the fourth Crusade events. They have a chance to happen at every crusade if the Byzantine Empire is alive and doing well and holding the core lands of Constantinople. A set of narrative events will happen where a claim for the Byzantine throne will leave the court of the emperor, find a Catholic merchant lord. So basically Dandolo. You can get a special bloodline. You can found the Latin Empire. Byzantium restored. I don't want to spend too long on these in case they're spoilers, basically. But yeah, because rules have been added for different kinds of crusades, you can enable or disable as you want, and maybe not mess up Iron Man. Then there's the Reconquista. Moving on to Conquest and Recovery. Number 16/94. For this week, we're going to take a look at the Iberian Reconquista and the Northern Crusades. Keep in mind things aren't finalized, so there might be small errors. Basically, there's the Teutonic campaign. You can invade. Holy Orders will try to take over land on behalf of the religion and pacify territory. And you can get Bloodlines and all these goodies if you win. Then there's the Iberian Reconquista, which is almost like a crusade, but it's not literally a crusade. It's a special Casus Belli. It's a CB that lets you attack two duchies in Iberia. So basically, it's very specifically tailored. It's almost kind of like the Charlemagne events, only it's for Iberians, which is actually genius because that's how they should do this. Which is what they're doing. They're doing that with the Reformed pagans. They're doing that with the Crusades, and they're doing it with the Iberians as well. We haven't yet seen anything from Africa. They didn't even give you the next, the teaser for the next one. There's nothing yet in Africa, which is a place of huge demand. There's nothing yet. I mean, there's stuff in, obviously, China's new. India's relatively new still. There's the pagans that got a lot of reforms. There's not a lot for the Muslims yet. I have a feeling there will be new stuff, but there's nothing yet. But there's one more dev diary to go. Amending Africa. This is another one that the community has just been like, please do this, do this, do this. We'd love for you to do this. It's more inclusivity. I'm going to click show dev only responses, by the way, just for this one. Just because Asiac presented it to me in this fashion. You've noticed a lot of map changes, but surely we wouldn't do these wonderful updates without looking at the content that deserves it the most, right? Now, to Paradox's sadness, they don't do a lot of before and afters in this. These are definitely afters. I know this is something that's more present in some mods, like Historical Immersion, CK2+, even When the World Stopped Making Sense. But new provinces and holding slots will make North Africa stronger. As for Mali, look at that. Look at what they've done with Africa. They've expanded it tremendously. Right, so they made Africa a lot bigger, and then they added a second set of trade routes to simulate the gold and salt trades of Africa. Paradox, I love you, because this, first of all, it affects like Mansa Musa, who was one of the most famous Muslims ever, possibly the richest man on earth, depending on how you measure things, and whether you consider spending money to be a sign of wealth or something else. Now you've got an opportunity for West African pagans, now just referred to as African faith, to survive and thrive because they're much stronger and more powerful, and you can also simulate the Muslim conversion of those areas. So this adds tremendous depth. Like, I can't even tell you how happy I was when I saw this. Like, I went on the subreddit, I went on the Discord, I was talking about this like on Twitter. Oh man, was this so I did that like Italian thing where you kiss, and I'm only part Italian. Wow, even they get new shield portraits. And of course, Elinari QA. Some nice Totally additions to Africa. I'm done. Oh, it's just genius. But they go through and they do eventually give you a really good look. And this is sort of missing in the previous pictures, but this is what Africa is going to look like now. This is the religion map mode for the 1066 start even. So there's still African faith in 1066. So there's a lot of the, like, just historical simulation that's going to go on now. Africa is complete with holy sites. I like that one's kind of far away, so you have to kind of fight for it, but the rest is squarely held. I kind of feel like Egypt should be an African, but I'm not sure how the Pseudo-Hellenic and Pan-Hellenic faiths interacted. I don't know enough about that history to make that an official thing. I'm just saying it would be interesting if, like, in order to really reform African, like, to have it all, you'd have to have this, one of the cradles of civilization that are most held up to represent Africa. I mean, it's Northern Africa, it's still part of the Mediterranean world, but it's still, like, just incredibly important for the history of Africa in general. Something I always make sure to teach in my social studies classes. So yeah, now there's the coastal connection, but instead of just being trapped in like a little bubble down here and then having the coast, there's all of this here too. It is a little weird how the world just kind of falls off in the south. I feel like, I don't know how Paradox could have better simulated this, but, you know, whatever, the map ends. Okay, fair enough. The map just ends. Great. What's further beyond? Who knows? Maybe we'll see more in the next episode of... No, we won't. It's probably not going to happen in this. But the point is, this is looking like a gigantic, awesome patch. If this was all they did, it would be well worth the price. Now, they have upped it, I believe. I believe this is going to cost $19.99 instead of $14.99 or $9.99. So, and it's also got matching visual patches and whatnot, additions, stuff you can buy. You get pre-order rewards. I might even have to pre-order. I've never pre-ordered anything in a long time, but for once in my life, and I know because we've seen pre-order go so wrong with EA that they've killed it. Freaking, so many bad examples with the Star Wars one, Battlefront 2 being preeminent in everyone's mind, and Ubisoft having similar, like, but like, this is Paradox. They've never really put out a terrible expansion. Even the ones that are rated low, like Sunset Invasion, I like. It adds new mechanics. Horse Lords wasn't the most popular. Conclave, some people hate it, but I love it. I don't know what to say. It's amazing. Anyhow, this has been quite the journey. I want to thank you all so very much for spending your time with me. I hope I've been able to whet your appetite. If there's one more thing you would be interested in, it's this video. Asiac brought it to my attention. It's from Paradox itself. I should probably subscribe to them. And it's CK2 Holy Fury gameplay from Paradox Con. I'm sure this is not a final build. By the way, I hope you don't mind my taste in videos and music. It's just a thing. But that's all. I want to thank you all again so much for joining me. If you enjoyed, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I cannot stress to you how much that helps my channel. I know it's a fantasy, but if I ever do get 1,000 subscribers and get remonetized, I'm going to have to do something special, because at that point I'll be able to pay for expansion packs at the channel again, which I used to do. As always on this channel, thank you for joining me. La Paz.